Can you imagine a world where we're all represented by a font? Wonder which one I would be. Too straight. No, not in that way, just straight, as in unexciting. Too, Deadpool. Broadway! Now that's the one, now that's the one! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where, instead of putting a joke here, I want to ask you a question. If your personality were represented by a font, what font would you be? Take a moment and put your font in the comments. I'm really curious to see what everyone has to say. Maybe find a couple new cool fonts to use. Getting bored with old Calibri 11. And with that out of the way, it's time to talk Undertale. Now, I don't think I've ever gotten this many requests to cover a game. Well, except for FNAF. And I suppose FNAF 2. Oh, and then there was FNAF 3. Wait a minute, should I be worried about something here? Anyway, across the board on YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, you all have wanted Undertale. And honestly, I'm glad you brought it to my attention. True loyal theorists will know that Earthbound is my favorite game of all time. So a self-aware RPG in a similar style? Oh man, it's like a gift from the indie gaming heavens. Undertale is a game where every character, from Goat Mom to Grind Fodder, has a sympathetic design and unique personality, motivations, goals, fears. Whether you're saving or slaughtering them, the game makes you feel something every time you enter an encounter. But to me, one character stood out amongst all the rest.
Okay, sure. Overwatch is being sold as a complete game at full price, but that's because it is. Blizzard has said that players will get everything from here on out, including new maps and other updates, all for free.
Skeleton named after the font, comments.
And it's also important to note that none of them are a clone. We don't have any Links, Young Links, and Toon Links here, ladies and gentlemen. Each and every character feels you.
Hence all the font references at the beginning of the episode. If you haven't played Undertale, I'm sure that was a really weird opening. Anyway.
But there are currently 22 characters in Overwatch, with more on the way compared to year 9. And the constant need to hop between them more than makes up for the fewer game modes and less flexible characters.
This is... well, there's a lot of mystery around this guy. And before we get into it, let me put up a very special spoiler warning. Undertale is a game best experienced blind. So if you haven't played it, pause the video and come back after you've finished. I promise you won't regret it. Alright, so everyone out of the pool and ready for the adult swim? Good, because I'm feeling pretty determined to get to the bottom of—
and even within a particular class, there's a lot of variety.
This mystery. So just to recap for those of you who haven't played the game and ignored the spoiler warning or just need a refresher.
But here's the thing. Though you can't customize loadouts just yet, Overwatch's emphasis on characters countering other characters means that it's gonna stay fun for a whole lot longer. Because the core mechanic of the game is getting good with multiple characters and switching when the situation demands it.
Hans is one of the two skeletal brothers who appear in the game. His partner is Papyrus, a loud, goofy trap lover also named after a font. But in the world of Undertale, their origins are a big question mark. All that we really know is what's given to us by a shopkeeper in Snowden, who explains that—
I wouldn't doubt the strength of the Overwatch community either, my friend. Cosplayers are out in force already. Blizzard is actively policing porn of these characters that's been popping up online.
Then Papyrus, quote, just showed up one day and asserted themselves. Weird, right? What's more is that, well, Papyrus is just kind of the goofy sidekick.
Increased mobility means Overwatch's characters are much better equipped to use more of the levels, explore the verticality of those levels, and try out different strategies that TF2's more limited characters just don't have open to them.
Is much more complex. Sure, he likes fart jokes, but he's also incredibly powerful and deadly serious. Not only is his boss battle the hardest in the game, he's one of the only characters to have knowledge and power over space and time. He often takes shortcuts around the world through ridiculous routes, even walking through walls. He also acknowledges that he's only one of infinite versions of himself, making self-aware commentary of the various timelines that you've played through in the game. He can even count the number of times he's killed you. He acts like an arbiter in this world, passing out judgment on the player's actions in the game, even explaining the secrets of EXP and love, or execution points and levels of violence, just to clarify. In short, he just doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the world of monsters. But then what? Or who is he? Well, the idea that he doesn't belong in Underworld seems to be correct. The evidence seems to point to the fact that he was, in fact, formerly a surface dweller. In the true pacifist ending of the game, as the group looks out onto the horizon, Papyrus asks,
but it's quality over quantity. Whereas you brag about having 100 maps, most of which are from the community, mind you, which is not a bad thing, but Overwatch's characters are just more mobile. They can roll, they can fly, teleport, use grappling hooks. With apologies to Freddie Wong, there's no need for convoluted rocket jumping in Overwatch.
It's about the giant ball in the sky.
12 maps, again, in 2 months after release as opposed to 9 years.
It says, quote, we call that the sun. This is important because A, the usage of the word we and knowledge of the sun shows that Sans has a kinship or knowledge with other humans, and B, that despite he and Papyrus both being skeletons, are supposedly brothers, and apparently appeared in Underworld at the same time, they clearly have two very different histories. Why would Papyrus not know the name of the sun, but...
The developers of Overwatch have gone on record saying that they actively avoided including stats like that in the game for exactly that reason, to make the team element the focus. In other words, in an ironic twist, Overwatch does Team Fortress better than Team Fortress.
We get further clues as to...
Team Fortress is also objective-based, but features things like kill-death ratios and rewards for dominating the enemy, stats and achievements that are directly tied to killing the opponent repeatedly. This makes it much less appealing to play as, say, a healer or other support character, since they're not as likely to get impressive numbers in those areas. And likewise, it increases the likelihood that offensive players will go rogue, heading out onto the map solo to boost these things up for themselves.
His origin, as we hear him say multiple times that he wants to go home or go back. He says as much during his dinner date scene at the Metaton Hotel. He notices that the player must want to go home and says, quote, I know the feeling. He then continues, maybe sometimes it's better to take what's given to you, as though he ended up in Underworld by accident. And in a genocide run during his boss fight, he says, quote, look, I gave up trying to go back a long time ago. End quote. And before you say he means going back to the surface world, that's clearly not the full story. His very next line of dialogue is, and getting to the surface doesn't really appeal anymore either. Key word here is either. Yes, he seems to hail from the surface and wants to go back, but based on his dialogue, he no longer considers it his home. It's as though the surface world he once knew is gone, as though he's from a different time. It's pretty intriguing. So we're left with a being that appeared out of nowhere, presumably from the human surface, but from a different time period, who seemingly has the power to teleport. That's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. But here's where things get really interesting.
The end goal is always completing your objective, be it moving a vehicle across the map or defending a certain position.
It has a hidden workshop that takes a fair amount of searching to find. You could say it takes a lot of determination to unlock. Anyway, obligatory determination references aside, as you start to look for this Easter egg,
Overwatch is a true team-based shooter, where teams need to be made of a diverse set of heroes and actually work together to succeed in the game.
Gives you a key to his room with the words, it's time you learn the truth. After some searching, you find the workshop, which contains items that leave even more questions. A photo album featuring...
So it looks like all those loyal gamers might be jumping ship, and honestly, who can blame them?
And a bunch of smiling people you don't recognize, a badge, blueprints with illegible handwriting, and a broken machine hidden behind a curtain. In the latest update, one more detail was added, a hand-drawn picture of 3 smiling faces with the words, don't forget. So what's it all mean? Well, a lot of Undertale theorists have been linking these details to a mysterious figure named W.D. Gaster, a ghostly character who never truly appears in the game. Honestly, covering him is a theory all unto itself, and probably one best saved for another day. Even still, none of the Gaster theories I've seen have been able to explain all the details. In particular, the photo album and the badge. And that's what kept nagging me as I researched Undertale. A badge? That one in particular really stuck out to me. Why would such an oddly specific item be included in this huge Easter egg of a room? Something that supposedly reveals the truth about...
Numbers since Overwatch's release in May have reached an all-time low for the game.
Badge badges just aren't important in Undertale. And then it hit me. What if it wasn't from Undertale? What if this badge was from a completely different game and was, in fact, the most important badge in the history of gaming? The Franklin Badge. Now, for those of you wondering what I'm talking about, the Franklin Badge is a pivotal item from the Mother series. You know, the one with Earthbound. Or maybe you don't know that one either. You know, the one that...
I'm about to win this debate in one word. Free. Team Fortress 2 is a free game with no hidden fees. The complete version of Overwatch is $60. Boom! Done. Shut it down. It's over.
It's from Super Smash Brothers. Yeah, well...
Consider that Overwatch has microtransactions on top of the $60 fee.
This is from Earthbound, and Earthbound is the second part in this larger Mother trilogy. Alright? Good. Anyway, the Franklin Badge is a really important part of that series. It gets its start in the very first game and carries through the whole trilogy, saving your life multiple times in the process. It's so important that Nintendo has made it a staple item in the Smash Brothers series. So I asked myself, what if the badge in...
TF2 player numbers have been on the decline since October of 2014, according to Steam Charts data.
Drawer was that exact badge. Well, first off, it'd make Undertale connected to my favorite game, thereby making it even cooler. But that's still a pretty big logical leap. I needed more. And let me tell you, as I started looking, more and more pieces started to fit into place. At the end of Earthbound, you're given a photo album covering your adventures throughout the game. To me, it's one of the best, most satisfying endings in gaming to look back on your journey in picture form. And what does
Overwatch wins where it truly matters, and that is gameplay.
Happen to have in his other drawer a photo album filled with pictures of
fees, upfront fees. I see you dancing around the subject. TF2 has microtransactions as well.
With people you don't recognize. Of course you don't know them. They're not characters present in Undertale. And note the word that's used here. People you don't recognize, not underworld monsters. So that's two items oddly linked to the Mother series, but then how do the blueprints and Broken Machine fit in? Well, in the final stretch of Earthbound,
Team Fortress 2 updates multiple times a year with free content on top of the game being free. And it's been doing this for 9 years. The game was released in October of 2007. That is a lot of service for zero money down.
Three friends must travel to the past in order to have their final battle against the evil alien Gygus. To do that, Dr. Andonuts, remember him by the way, he's gonna be important later, with the help of the science geniuses Apple Kid and Mr. Saturn, create what's known as the Phase Distorter, a machine that allows people to travel through time and space. Except, it comes with a cost. It can't transport organic material. As a result, the young heroes must put their souls into robotic bodies to use the machine and thus save the world. I played this game back in 1997, and I'm not ashamed to admit that when I first saw this scene, I cried. It's devastating. Dr. Andonuts says goodbye to his son. These characters that you've grown to love and care about are suddenly promising to sacrifice their lives. For all they know, there's no possibility of them being able to come back home. It's this incredibly dark departure in the final moments of what was otherwise a fun, quirky, and colorful RPG. So what's all this have to do with Undertale? A lot, actually, but the first thing you need to know is that Mr. Saturns are known for their, let's say, unique linguistic style. That would explain the illegible handwriting on the blueprints. And the machine, I think a broken phase distorter is behind that curtain. Now that may seem like a stretch, but it actually explains a lot.
If in a time when gamers are more accepting than ever to play different characters, Overwatch embraces diversity.
Wound up in Underworld via a phase distorter, it could provide a reason for why he's a skeleton. He used the machine as organic matter and suffered the consequences. Not killing him, but turning at least part of him into a pile of bones. It would also explain why
Well, the characters in TF2 may be from all across the world, outside of the Demo Man and maybe the Pyro, they're all white males. Overwatch, though, literally has a grandmother who snipes medicine into your body.
Has given up hope for going home. Remember, the Distorter is a time machine. By being in Underworld, he's not only in a different place, but based on how he talks, he's also in a different time, with no hope of traveling back to the time he came from. But the crossovers between Earthbound and Undertale continue. When you speak to the Apple Kid at the end of Earthbound, he's blown away by the astronomical odds of...
Yeah, I would hope so, considering it's the same game nearly a decade later. Only with fewer maps, of course. TF2 has 100. How many does Overwatch have again?
12, but...
You can call me Torbjorn, because I'm just standing here, and I just got play the game.
Ness overcoming Gygus, saying that he's going to continue studying the trait called courage in order to harness its power. Seems awfully similar to the same experiments happening in Undertale around the trait of determination, no? Especially since so much speculation has circulated that,
let's face it, but ult moves are a ton of fun.
is a key player in those experiments. But I'm sure you also want physical evidence, right? Well, don't worry, because I have plenty. During one of the endings of Undertale, we see Undyne and Alphys hanging out on the beach on the surface world, a beach that shares a lot of similarities to the tropical resort location named Summers that you play through in Earthbound. In fact, the geographic layout of the surface bears some striking similarities to the world of Mother. When Undertale's crew of monsters are finally able to reach the surface and look out over the earth, they're met with a beautiful sunset falling across a landscape of a tall mountain, a large city, and a sandy area adjacent to water. Notice the sun's reflection to indicate water and a lack of trees in this middle section here, hence the sand. Well, in Earthbound, you have the big city of Fourside, complete with skyscrapers, which you reach via a desert that just so happens to be adjacent to some water, and to the east, the mountain in Onetz, where a meteorite lands on Earth. I always called it Onett, but if that's not clear enough for you, Mother 1, Earthbound 0, Earthbound Beginnings, whatever you want to call it, it's had a lot of names, had a map laying out the same geographic landscape, a tall mountain to the east of a large city, separated by a desert, with all of it up against a coast. I don't know about you, but to me it seems like there's a definite connection between the world of Eagleland, again, unclear how it's pronounced, between the world of Eagleland and the surface world of Undertale. But the strongest physical connection, the one that definitely unites these two franchises, comes from none other than Papyrus himself. He wears a custom-made costume known as his battle body, but if you look really closely at the design of the armor, you'll notice some markings on the chest. Is it just a throwaway detail? Oh no! That right there is an exact match to the ones that appear on the chests of Starman, the most iconic enemy of Earthbound. And look at the way he stands. I always thought it was awkward until I looked at the two characters side by side. Papyrus's curved arm and hand is a direct match to the curved arms of the Starman in the Mother series. In short, we have some incredibly strong proof that the Earthbound universe is somehow connected to the Undertale world, which brings us back to our initial question: who is
You say TF2 is more balanced, and yet Overwatch's smaller team size per match allows for more strategically constructed teams compared to the massive battles of TF2.
Well, what if we took it one final step and said that
With too many players on the field, it just becomes bedlam. But with Overwatch's team sitting at 6v6, it makes each player's character choice
happen to be...
You know what isn't open in Overwatch? Community servers. And that means that the community won't be as active within the game, which is a total bummer. Unlike in TF2, overhypers, Overwatchers won't be creating their own unique modes, skins, hosting their own events on their own servers. They can't do any of that stuff, and we know just how much the community has done for TF2 over all these years. This game was a meme machine. You think you could beat that? Nope.
Again, it may be coming, and
from Earthbound, sent through the phase distorter during a test of courage, carrying the Franklin badge and his photo album in his trusty backpack. Not only do all the items in the workshop suddenly fit, but so does...
And speaking of skill, the need to master not just one character, but multiple characters in order to be successful in this game means that it has a higher potential skill ceiling for the hardest of hardcore players.
His behavior. Remember,
and let's not forget as well, Overwatch simply looks and runs better.
Can seemingly teleport, and...
Yeah, for hats, for new weapons, for general character customization.
Just so happens to have the PSI ability to teleport. Now look at the way...
Team Fortress is a decade old, which makes it really hard to compete.
He always stands, hands in his pockets, directly facing the camera. It's a very similar stance to how...
Tell that to the loyal gamers who've been playing TF2 for the past 9 years. The game has stood the test of time.
Is depicted standing in most marketing for the game. It even explains why
Sure, Overwatch may have borrowed from TF2, but it's not like it's hiding that fact.
This bleeds when you finally hit him. He is, or at least was, a human. Oh, and finally,
Overwatch is a love letter to all of gaming. Soldier 76 is straight out of Call of Duty. D.Va is Titanfall. Pharah is Metroid. To me, these sorts of references just make the game more fun.
this is only one letter removed from being an anagram for
In TF2, you pay for what you want, and you get what you want when you pay for it.
That's just a fun one. I thought it was worth mentioning. But if there was any doubt, we have to look no further than the creator's previous work. Toby Fox, the man behind Undertale, had previously worked on a Halloween hack for Earthbound. But this just wasn't a simple reskin. The Halloween hack tells the tale of Dr. Andonuts after the events of Earthbound. Remember, I pointed him out? He's the one who made the phase distorter. In Toby Fox's version of the story, we see that after Gygas's defeat, the souls of the kids never return home. Instead, by going to the past to defeat Gygas, they create a new timeline that they're stuck in. As a result, Jeff never reunites with his father, Dr. Andonuts. And Dr. Andonuts goes crazy with guilt because he's the one responsible for creating the time machine and extracting the souls of his son and his son's friends to send them back to what he assumes was their death. In his mind, he killed 4 kids. And in Toby Fox's game, he's lost his mind trying to deal with that guilt. I'm telling you, this hack is dark. But that said, you see a lot of Undertale in this game. The appearance of amalgamates, the first use of the awesome song Megalovania, the prototypes for Flowey, and the theme of having the choice to be non-violent in an RPG, sparing your enemies. But then why's all this matter to the theory? Well, remember, in Toby Fox's version of the story, the kids don't come back. They're stuck in the past with no hopes of getting home, just like...
And now couple that humor with mechanics that actually reward you for smart team-based combat, matches where you must consistently jump across multiple characters and classes, and fixed teams where you're not going to be thrown onto the enemy side if someone suddenly decides to leave, and you have yourself a game that's accessible enough for beginners, but sophisticated enough to be competitive on the esports level.
And in the hack, one character is oddly missing, with no explanation as to why.
In Overwatch, the microtransactions give you a chance to maybe get what you want.
Presumably in this timeline, his soul is in a different place than his 3 friends. Which brings us back to Undertale. 3 faces with "Don't Forget" written on it. It's...
Sure, every time you buy a loot box, that's a chance to get that skin that you wanted just so badly. You've been waiting for it since day 1, but there's a pretty good chance you're gonna get one of those sprays you've already gotten 3 times before.
trying to remember his 3 friends. In short, Undertale is a continuation of Toby's version of Earthbound.
And let's face it, even if you did play the Overwatch loot box game to hopefully get those unique items for your favorite character, the extent to which you can customize them is painfully thin.
Plus, there's no ammo boxes, which to me is always a big perk.
And accompanied by Papyrus, a former Starman, an alien force able to speak English and still equipped with his armor and signature posture, but without any knowledge of earthly things, like the sun. The pieces all just seem to fit. And all we need is an appearance from Pokey/Porky, and we've got ourselves a true sequel. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Now go forth with that knowledge and try to tell me who Gaster is. Don't worry, I'll be looking too. I have a few more Undertale theories in the works, as well as a deadlock, and then there's Goomba with another culture shock on the game. So if you're into the franchise, make sure you subscribe to get notified of those videos as they come out over the next few weeks. And hey, if you're interested in learning more about the Earthbound Halloween hack and its role as a precursor to Undertale, we're currently playing through it live. Our next session is Wednesday at 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, right here on this channel. So check it out. It's super creepy, but also super fascinating to see the inner workings of Toby Fox's mind. And if you want to catch up with what you've missed, boom, here's a link. I think that this clip really sums it up best.
Hell yes, Mexicans!
Or if you want to learn more about my favorite game, Earthbound, click right here. It's an old theory I did about the true meaning of the game, with an emphasis on old. So go back and laugh at how bad my editing and voiceover was. It's pretty funny to look back. But honestly, the message about the beauty of Earthbound is just as relevant as ever. Hopefully, by you guys watching this episode and maybe clicking over to watch that episode, I can share with you my all-time favorite game, and quite honestly, one of the best games ever created. But now if you'll excuse me, I've got to go track some human migratory patterns across southeastern Asia. So I'll see you guys next week.